Welcome back to the channel. I'm Foreman, and in this video I'm going to be talking about how I stomach volatility, how I cope with those big drawdowns in a portfolio, and why despite only holding 3 stocks, I'm typically okay with it. But also, in this situation, why I am actually struggling with some of the volatility in my portfolio and exactly what is causing it. And so if you like the video, please drop one of these to help beat that YouTube algorithm. Of course, there was a microphone in the way, so you can't actually see that, new equipment and all of that. The stock I'm talking about today is Argo Blockchain, and I have pretty much been cornered into a position. This is because I don't think I can sell the stock, I can't buy the stock, so I'm trapped like a rabbit. In the book The Art of Execution, written by Lee Freeman Shaw, it goes into a lot of detail about the 5 types of investors. One key type of investor is that of a rabbit. Quite a comedic name, of course, but the idea is that the rabbits typically underperform quite massively. They have a stock that's down by over 20%, and instead of either averaging down and buying the dip or cutting their losses, they seem to sit there and continue holding. Myself with Argo Blockchain, obviously I'm continuing to hold, and I'm down about 40% at the moment, which could be a concern. And I can't buy the dip because, one, I'm overexposed. And if you'd seen my video before, this is I spoke about my greatest mistake, and this was buying into the hype of Argo Blockchain. I typically like to keep it simple, right? So I invest in companies that I can explain to a 5-year-old, because maybe I am a 5-year-old. But regardless, whilst yes, you could tell a 5-year-old what the business does, they're not going to understand it. You could say, oh yeah, Argo Blockchain mines Bitcoin. Sure, that sounds simple, but then what is Bitcoin? How does Bitcoin work? There's no way a 5-year-old's going to understand that, nor myself. I'm simply not interested in researching this, and so it is a bit of a mistake, because if I'm not interested in researching Bitcoin, I don't have an understanding or conviction of perhaps a use case over the longer term, and so then I'm subject, on high moments of volatility, which Bitcoin is prone to more panic, more fear, uncertainty, and doubt. In particular, I'm trapped like a rabbit. This is because when I bought on the dip, I bought with FOMO. I bought quite a lot as the price was rapidly increasing, and this meant that my position average is quite high. It's £1.87. This is more of a concern as the shares have dropped down to roughly 106 pence per share as of Monday evening's close. The concern overall isn't about the volatility of the shares, it's where the company is going longer term. If you have conviction in Bitcoin, you understand where it's going to go, why it's going to do that, and then you're a secure person. Much like myself, I don't invest based on blind faith. You may think so with my holding of Boohoo, but this is not the case. I buy into Boohoo because I understand the business model. I understand why, in my vision of the future, they're going to grow. With Argo Blockchain, this is a lot more difficult. I can understand that they're increasing their hash rate, they're developing that Helios facility to 200 megawatts, where they're going to have pretty much double their current exahash of mining capacity. However, this doesn't mean that much to me. I understand the idea behind it. I understand as a Bitcoin miner, they're going to be doing better. But again, I don't understand the underlying asset, if you can call it that, hence why I'm now struggling with the volatility. Typically, if one of my stocks drops, I see it as a buying opportunity. And this is where the second mistake comes in, or the second thing, or the reason why I'm truly trapped. And this is because I don't have cash. Admittedly, this is partially my mistake and also partially not, but I will accept responsibility for my actions, of course. In this situation, it means that I don't have cash because I didn't provision for it, right? I didn't build a cash position expecting a dip. And it wasn't like I didn't expect a correction to come. It was the fact that I was just dollar cost averaging or pound cost averaging into the markets each and every week. So it seemed a bit unwise to put money into a cash position when I can keep topping up my positions, build up some equity, and then look to build a cash position as my portfolio size starts to increase a little bit more. That way then I'm not missing out on gains in the markets by a substantial amount, and then I can slowly deploy cash where needed based on my income. At the time, I was a weekly paid earner, and it made a lot more sense. However, now I've moved to monthly pay, and there was a gap of about 5 weeks where I did struggle. I had to deplete my business emergency fund for the sake of continuing on with regular bills and obviously investments. So, and I know a lot of people say don't invest your emergency fund, but that was what it was pretty much provisioned for. The idea is that I have no longer got a cash position. So when my stocks are dropped, like Boohoo, like pretty much my whole portfolio, to be honest, I was keen on buying Boohoo shares because I wanted to average down on the position, acquire more because it is one of my highest conviction stocks in the portfolio. I understand why they're going to grow in the future, and so I was buying more. At this time, Argo Blockchain was down around about 20 to 30%, but because I bought too much on the FOMO, and then when the shares initially dropped from their peak of £3 earlier in the year, I bought the dip, but I bought the dip too early. And obviously it's easy to say that in hindsight. After all, it's easy to win Sunday's lotto with Monday's newspaper. It's very easy in hindsight. However, the issue I had made is that I wasn't strategic about it. I didn't have a plan of action, and I just carelessly bought the dip without noticing how much of an exposure that I was actually putting towards Argo Blockchain, an investment that was speculative at best, just based on the idea that I didn't understand the underlying asset of Bitcoin, more or less cryptocurrencies. And so I should have kept this firm. Originally, my investment thesis was diversification is protection against ignorance. And of course, I wanted some diversification to cryptocurrencies because I saw they were doing well. I figured it's another asset class with high liquidity and something that I could see over the longer term increasing. Not really a good investment plan, but again, I wanted to invest a small amount, maybe 5%. My mistake was that it got to 25%, and that was far too much. I believe Warren Buffett also said risk management is key in investing, because if you don't have that, if you don't have a plan, then you're not effectively managing your risk. And obviously, I've really changed the wording of this quote. And as we can see on my portfolio holdings, Argo Blockchain now takes up 20.7%, but that's because the day change swing was 10.98%. Overall, my total gain slash loss, which is a loss, I don't know why I said gain, is £3,130, or I'm down 41.67%. If you assume the average market returns based on the last 30 years roughly were 8% per year, not accounting for inflation or anything like that, or fees, then this would take a much longer time to recover this position if I'm in line with the market if I sold now. And this is where I'm trapped, because I do believe Argo Blockchain has drivers for their share price over the longer term. They're expanding, they're building on capacity, but at the same time, I also don't feel like averaging down because I'm concerned over further shareholder dilutions. They are a very capital intensive business that have shown that they are really not interested in, for instance, selling their hodl of Bitcoin. They've sold a very small amount, but they would rather dilute their shares or acquire more debt, as they believe over the longer term Bitcoin will do better than obviously the rate of that they can grow the business, which I strongly disagree with. I could see Bitcoin increasing over the longer term, but it would be speculation and only my best guess based on my lack of knowledge in this. But I figure if they were selling the hodl, reinvesting that into mining equipment and developing themselves even more, I figure that would do better overall. But I think it's also a case of peer pressure. And I don't mean peers as in, Argo Blockchain's best bud. I mean the competition in the industry. A lot of them have considerable hodls. You've got Marathon, I believe, that have something like 3,000 or 4,000 Bitcoin. And so obviously it's quite a substantial jump from the likes of Argo Blockchain. Although that Marathon Bitcoin hodl I've quoted from about half a year ago, so it has likely changed quite considerably. The point I'm making is that I'm able to stomach volatility in the likes of Boohoo because I know where I think the share will be in the future. I've been consistently buying the dip, and despite being, a little bit better than my position with Argo Blockchain, I have conviction. I like the quality of the company. However, with Argo Blockchain, perhaps they don't have as much of a track record. Their revenue is based on multiples of a speculative cryptocurrency, which in my opinion is speculative in my investment thesis, as I don't understand the asset. So the solution here is that I need to do some more research. I probably should have cut my losses, but again, that's easy to say in hindsight. After all, hindsight is 2020. Hence, why now I need to do some research. But I also want to be careful of one critical mistake. And this is, I believe, cognitive bias. And I may have got the wrong bias name. The idea that I'm trying to make here is that I do not become biased based on the information that I can see. So I I research with a balanced and mixed opinion at all times. I don't look at a disadvantage and turn that into an opportunity. Instead, I'm here and I'm present so that I can keep a balanced opinion, and every time I review my shares, I should look at it going, well, would I buy the shares at the current price? With Boohoo, to me, it's a screaming buy. With Games Workshop, I think it's a buy, but obviously the waiting is that I'm more interested in Boohoo at the moment, so I'm buying a lot more because I think they're at a better discount. Whereas Argo Blockchain, yeah, I think they're discounted. I think over the medium term, maybe they'll recover to slightly above or a little bit more than my share price. Maybe we're looking at the mid £2 a share. Again, I'm speculating, I'm only guessing. But I can't see a clear, defined future of where I think the share price will be based on the fundamentals. But obviously their past performance is quite impressive. We are seeing that really mark up. And this is a trailing 12-month set of earnings. So basically, we're looking backwards and not forwards. With the operational updates, which Argo Blockchain has not released theirs for the month now, I upload this on a Tuesday, so perhaps it will be released by then. It's likely going to be slightly better. And what we'll find is that their profit margins are actually much higher than initially, or at least shown here, because their margins, I believe their gross margins are something like 86%, which is a high amount. And there is a long way to go. And based on a market cap of about £570 million, earnings of roughly 40-50 million is pretty impressive and puts them on quite a low price to earnings multiple. So it is obviously a value stock, but it is one that I lack conviction. And today I did fear, I did worry. The shares had dropped by about 18% intraday. I looked at it and I went, oh. And I had that feeling where I was like, I don't feel too good. I feel a bit sick. But I powered through. In that moment, I didn't succumb to fear. I sat through it and I tried to remain calm until I could have a cool and balanced head, in which now I can review the investment case again now that the market's shut and take a deeper dive. I did expect this to happen when Bitcoin had dropped overall, because when Bitcoin drops, Argo Blockchain is likely going to drop by a larger amount because their future expected revenue and multiples are based on that asset. So it's understandable. And I obviously expected volatility when going into this asset, and overall the monetary value, I mean, it's not massive, it's not a huge setback, but at this early stage it would have been something like a third of my salary last year, or maybe a quarter of my salary last year, and so that's quite a sizable chunk considering how much I've saved. Now my salary is in line with about the portfolio size, at least the current value. It's a little bit more than that, my salary, about 22.7k. So yeah, it's not bad. The idea going forward is that I'm going to buy shares. I'm going to continue buying the dip with Boohoo. I'm likely not going to touch Argo Blockchain, but I will start to build cash once the shares start to recover, and then have about 10% cash. But be careful not to use it all at once. Deploy it carefully, small amounts here away, and chip away at the share price. And I think the same comes to selling it. Again, The Art of Execution, I highly recommend this book. Link is in the description down below. But the idea here is that people are too easy to cut their winners and hold their losers. So when the shares go up, and usually it's more of a rare thing, when they go up is let them run a bit, trim them back, but not substantially, unless you think the story has changed, and obviously cut your position. That way, I believe you can get the most sustainable returns over the longer term and truly win. This spreadsheet here, if you'd like to see my live holdings, is in my link in the description down below, my Patreon link. You can also get a template version of this spreadsheet so that you can track your own stocks yourself. At the moment, it is only for UK stocks, and my Patreon is only £2 a month, and I will not raise the price on that. If you're interested in my Argo Blockchain stock analysis, then click the card at the top right of the video. I'm not used to having a pop filter in the way. Thank you for watching. Have a fantastic day.